Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. So, a lot of people have been asking me over the last week what I think is going to happen with the comic industry and the entertainment industry at large, due to what is going on right now, which seems to be a backlash against the quote-unquote progressive, woke agenda in entertainment. And while I do want to talk about that a little bit, certainly, I think most people are missing the forest for the trees, because they're not looking at the big picture. I'm not going to look at what specific show or book is going to be canceled. I'm not going to look at what kinds of specific shows or books are being canceled. I think that what we need to concentrate on is who is going to be controlling the product in the future. If there is a change, if there is a turn away from this quote unquote progressive entertainment, is the replacement for it going to be directed by the customer or not? That's the real question that needs to be asked. However, to get there, I will need to talk about some specifics, some specific movies and books, and what is going on within the entertainment industry at large. So the first thing to talk about is the fact that DC Entertainment has canceled the new Batwoman movie. Or is it Batgirl movie? It doesn't really matter. They're not coming out with it, even though it's almost completely finished. That is to say, they have already had viewings by test audiences, and those test audiences hated it. And so even though it's at that point, and really only reshoots would come after that, and then the marketing for it, they're going to shelve it, not even putting it out on any kind of streaming service or anything like that. They're going to make sure no one sees this, canceling it that much. And although I don't follow the economic parts of it as closely as a lot of other people, I think they put something like $90 million into it, and now they're going to make sure it never sees the light of day. And why are they doing this? Well, the new director of DC Entertainment is saying that they're going to try to protect their brand and focus on quality for their products. Now, here's the thing. Most people are thinking to themselves, this means that they're going to start canceling these woke products. What he's saying is, get woke, go broke. And he sees that they're going broke because of their woke products. Therefore, he's taken what is on the shelf, these woke products that are in the pipeline, and he's canceling them in order to save some kind of money, in order to save the reputation of the industry. I really don't think that's what's going on. Now, a couple of asides. Number one, this Batwoman movie was woke as all get out. Just look at the cast and what they were doing with this product. It was a woke product. Number two being, this was supposed to take Batwoman and replace Batman with a female Bat character for the entire DCEU. Number three, there's also rumors that they're going to cancel the Superwoman movie, which again, that character was supposed to replace Henry Cavill's Superman within the DCEU. So these would all be things that would lead someone's mind to, yeah, they're canceling all the woke products. And I also want to bring up another rumor that has been floating around. Now it's a doomcock rumor, so certainly you have to take this with a major grain of salt, but at the same time, he's not always wrong. So, what is this rumor? Well, the rumor is that, of course, DC has been trying to build its own version of the MCU. It wants to compete or overtake Marvel, but they've been pathetic at doing it so far. They see Marvel now starting to flounder, and they said to themselves, well, look, they're probably going to bring in the X-Men over the next couple of years to try to buoy up their MCU, which is what I talked about a couple of weeks ago. And after that, they're just going to reboot the entire thing in about 10 years. And you're going to see Captain America and Iron Man back on the screen. So, DC has a 10-year window wherein Marvel is going to be on the decline, and if they want to build their DCEU, that would be the time to do it. They must move, and they must move now. And everything must move in the one direction to build this thing, and if any other movie or any other script or any other show is going to get in the way of building this DCEU within the next 10 years, which is all their limited window is, then it needs to be gotten rid of. This is a more plausible explanation if you ask me. And why? Well, if you look at the history of DC, what they do over and over again is that when things get bad, they rally around their central characters and abandon everything else. So they take Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, they make that the core of everything that they're going to do. They move back to that start position, and they take off from there. And this is what DC has done over and over within the last 4 decades. And it's not a bad strategy, because they're taking characters that either everyone knows or are legacy characters that have been around for almost 80 years at this point, so they have quite a history, and they can draw off of that history to make good stories within whatever medium they're trying to push these characters in at the time. And so taking a cue from history, that's probably what they're doing right now. It's not that they don't want these woke products to be out there, it's that they need to reboot. And they need to do it now, and so they're going to have to shelve all of these products. And of course, these characters, these woke characters, Batwoman, which was supposed to be replacing Batman, Superwoman, which was supposed to be replacing Superman, you can't have that. No way can you have that. You have to go back to the original characters. Now, this brings me to a point that I've been talking about on my channel from the beginning, which is about 4 years ago. What they're probably going to do, starting with DC, and Marvel's probably going to follow as well, is that they're going to try to take everything back to the 80s and the 90s. They're going to play off of nostalgia and hope that everybody's going to forgive them for what they've done over the last 10 to 15 years, and so come back and re-establish themselves as fans of these products. And do I have any other information besides probablys and rumors? Well, there is one small thing that I ran across over the last couple of weeks, and it is pointing towards a reversal, or at the very least, these companies starting to hedge their bets. And it's the fact that at the convention of C2E2, which is going on right now, Marvel is promoting the fact that it now has booths ready for you to come and show your work. So if you're an artist, you can go to C2E2 and present your portfolio to someone at Marvel, and they can either give you directions about where to go if it's not good enough, or possibly hire you to work at Marvel. Now, I really don't know if they've done this up until this point at C2E2 or other conventions. People will have to tell me in the comments if they have. But this I do know. They have never really promoted it publicly that they were doing so. Not like they've done this year. And although it's not very big, again, it's not in your face and it's not out there so that everyone in the world can see it, but it's a lot more than they've been doing over the last 4 years since I've had this channel and looked deeply into Marvel and DC and their inner workings. This says to me that, again, Marvel is starting to hedge their bets. At one time, you had Marvel being the top on the block, where everybody wanted to be. If you were an artist, you wanted to go and work for Marvel. Certainly, if you're part of the American entertainment industry and American comics. And so what used to happen was you started doing your own thing, and then possibly you got hired by some indie creators and then some indie companies, and then you might have gotten noticed by Marvel. You would get something small there and then work your way up to being a better and better artist and then get a main book for Marvel. That has been completely turned on its head over the last 10 years. What you see right now as artists for Marvel is Marvel going out and looking for very specific people, usually with a very specific mindset and background and political ideology stuck in their head, and saying to them, you should come and work for Marvel. I've done numerous videos about this. This is one of the things they talked about on panels for Marvel over and over again at the Comic-Cons and on their podcasts. They said, if you want to work for Marvel, we will come and find you. Why? Because they wanted specifically to handpick these people. And these people were not good artists. They were not there because of merit in any way. And so you didn't build up to that, this is the top of the heap, I'm at Marvel, I'm the best of the best. No, it became, Marvel has chosen me for some reason, probably something to do with my politics or my intersectionality, and I'm now a major artist at Marvel on a major book at Marvel, but I have an indie style at best. And quite honestly, again, I've gone over this on my channel so many times. The Women of Marvel podcast did an entire year's worth of podcast talking about how to build up alliances so that you can get into the comic industry and work for Marvel in this way. This was quite literally their stated theme for the entire year. There's an interview that I just saw from Kelly Sue DeConnick, and it was lauding her for creating hashtags that would allow female creators and only female creators to start to climb the ladder and enter into the comic industry, whereas they would not have gotten in there before. I've heard podcasts from Marvel, straight from Marvel, where they talk about, yes, these people need to hold the door open for us female creators and allow us to come in because it's our time now. This is not a system of merit. And on top of that, you have things like Mike Millar and his little indie comic company promising $1.99 comics now and saying, I have just gone and poached the best artists from Marvel and DC. Well, if that's where the best artists are going, if they're going to indie companies right now, and Marvel is the bottom of the heap, Marvel Comics, anyways, needs to start looking at what it's doing in attracting artists and getting the best artists out there. And again, I don't think this is a full reversal by any means, but it looks like they're starting to hedge their bets. It looks like they're starting to move back to that point where, yeah, merit does actually count for something, but don't say that too loud. And besides that, let's move back to those statements from DC Entertainment, where they said they wanted to focus on quality and they wanted to make sure that they protected their brand. Now, at the same time, they're still restating their commitment to diversity and inclusion. So what does that mean? Well, it means that all they're going to do is try to take this woke product and put it in the background or put it in the subtext. I did a video just 2 weeks ago where I covered an interview with a woman who works for Marvel's television department, talking about how even today, there's still subtext in all of these woke stories because there's still some woke things that they can't talk about openly. So they're still putting subtext in because she was trying to explain the subtext of older Marvel comics and older Marvel products. And honestly, I said to myself, what in the world can you not put in a comic right now? What kind of bizarre thing do you want for the future? And what exactly are you putting in as subtext? But really, the point for today is that if they're still doing that right now, and if for some reason they're going to start going back to the old way of doing things so that they can begin to sell their product again, well, what do you think they're going to do? Well, they're going to take their woke message and they're going to put it in as much subtext as possible. It's still going to be there. It's going to be in the background. It's not going to be the center of the entire story. And their heads are going to almost explode for them to have to do this again, but they're going to do it. And again, this is the real danger of what is going to happen. They're playing upon nostalgia and moving back to an 80s and 90s way of making comics. Because if they can convince people to go back to their stories, to become fans of their products once again, it's going to lead to disastrous results. Because I am firmly of the opinion, as a person who studies history and politics and how ideas develop over time, which is what I have my degrees in, this place where we are right now, politically, historically, as a culture or as cultures around the world, we're here because of what happened in the 80s and 90s. And it wasn't just by chance. It wasn't just something that happened. It was the 80s and the 90s inevitably led us to where we are right now. There is no other position we could be in from the 80s and the 90s to where we are right now. And so their plan, again, would be, well, it seems like times are getting really tough. Times are getting really hard. There's no way we can sell this woke product anymore. So we're just going to put it on pause. They're going to put it on pause in a way to say, well, look, we're going back to the 80s and 90s. We're going to produce our products, whether they be television shows or movies or comics or games or anything else. They're going to produce them in that way. They're going to make the fans think to themselves, oh, look, we finally won. Get woke, go broke. They went broke and then they had to go back to this merit way of doing things. While on their side, they're saying to themselves, no, we're just biding our time. We know we're eventually going to be back here. We're just taking you back to a position whereby there is no other destination than here. And next time when we get here, we have more information and we have a better idea of what to do in order to come out on top and make sure that this is all there's going to be for entertainment in the future. And of course, that will happen when times get good again. And you see, That's really the key of what is going on here. It's the fact that times are getting tough, and it looks like they're going to get tougher in the future. And again, if we take our cue from history and look at how entertainment has dealt with hard times in the past or times of instability in the past, we can see a very specific pattern, certainly within American entertainment. And that's what I'm talking about. And I'll give you just two brief examples to illustrate my point. Most everyone, even the younger part of this audience that is listening to me, probably remember about 15 to 20 years ago, I'm not entirely sure when exactly it started. I could look it up, but I'm not going to because it's not that relevant. But the point is that there was a movement within entertainment in order to start selling old stories. That is to say, old fairy tale kinds of stories. This was a very specific thing. It didn't start with, but certainly included things like the television show Once Upon a Time, or the movie Snow White and the Huntsman, or that book series that was about a robot that was basically Cinderella. This was done for more than an entire decade. And this movement towards these kinds of stories, if you look at when it began and what specifically brought it about, well, you can find it exactly within American history. What happened was America started to get involved in foreign wars once again. Because before that time, within the 70s, 80s, and most of the 90s, America did not involve itself overtly in any kind of international wars. It was just the Cold War, and there was spy stuff going on all over the place, and that's why we had so many spy movies back in the 80s and the 90s, and the 70s, I guess, too. But with the collapse of the Soviet Union, and things starting to get hot around the world again, and America starting to enter the fray within foreign wars again, people in America started to feel a little antsy. They wanted some security, and they weren't finding it within their news, they weren't finding it within their politics. So they looked for it within their stories and what was sold to them in order to give them something, not just a fantasy or a fantasy world to escape to, but a very familiar fantasy world to escape to was, we'll give them fairy tales. We'll give them all of those stories that they've known since they've been children. Turn them into new stories so that they go and watch them. But it is to feed into a sense of security, again, that was lacking on the world stage for America, or how Americans felt about their own country at that time. Here we see a prime example of what American entertainment does when things get unstable. They try to capitalize on that instability by providing stability to its audience. And quite honestly, I think we're facing a lot more instability and a lot more hard times than what happened at that point in history. We can go back to the hardest times that we can think of within recent memory, which was between 1929 and 1939. That was the Great Depression. We might be facing down something similar to that in the near future. Now, we're never going to go back to that kind of poverty. I can never see that happening. We as societies have built up enough so that we're never going to be that poor again. But the point was that back in that time, what happened with entertainment? Well, that was the golden age of movies. And that golden age of movies was built upon providing its audience with 2 or 3 very specific kinds of stories. Number one, first of all, the audience wanted something cheap, and movies were very cheap at that time, but the story is what is more important. They wanted to see something on screen that was luxurious. They wanted to see something that showed them a higher class or a higher standard of living, just so that they could see that, yeah, that still existed. Yeah, that dream is still there. Yeah, I might be able to reach that someday because it still exists. That was number one. That was what they were shown. And number two, they wanted mostly to laugh, so the comedies were just pumped out one after another, but they wanted to laugh in a very specific way. They wanted to laugh a lot at the high society that got them into this mess to begin with. And again, showing them that high society was one of the things that they were lacking, that they wanted to see. Showing these comedies or these tongue-in-cheek dramas where they poked fun at the upper class and laughed at them because they got us here to begin with. This is exactly the kind of storytelling that American movies were built upon within the golden age of movies. And again, What does it point towards? It points towards the fact that the entertainment industry, which, by the way, was one of the few industries that started to do really well, better and better, in fact, during the Great Depression. Why? Because they were capitalizing on that instability and providing the people with entertainment that they wanted and that they craved, giving them exactly what they lacked in their life. And this plays into that exact thing that I was talking about at the first with DC. They're going back to their original characters. The characters that made them money, the characters that everyone know, the characters that have been around for so long. They're going to rally around those familiar figures and give these characters to an audience that is craving some kind of stability. And that's why they need to cancel all of these quote-unquote woke or progressive products that they have going right now. And I can just hear the thoughts of some people thinking to themselves, well, I don't care how it happens as long as it happens. As long as they get rid of this woke garbage, then I don't care. But you should care. Because again, the point is, where are they going to go from there? And that question is answered very much by who they are trying to appease by making these stories. Are they trying to appease a government body or some compilation of government bodies in order to make the citizenry of the country more open to listening to what is being told them within the little box in the corner or on the screen in front of them? Or are they listening to the actual audience and producing what the actual audience is telling them what they want? Because providing stability is a very tricky thing. You never really know if they're doing it because you think it's going to make things better or because someone else wants you to believe things are going to get better. And honestly, while that sounds like a bit of a nut job thing to say, I'll freely admit that, if you look right now at the trust in the news media and the entertainment industry itself, they're at rock bottom. No one trusts them right now. And I'll have to ask, if they were all at the same time to flip their script right now and start telling you exactly what you wanted to hear, would you trust them? I don't know about you, but I would have to question that one severely. And so we should severely question the fact that if something like this happens, and DC reboots itself, at the very least within its cinematic universe, and starts to get rid of the woke entertainment, and quite honestly, I think this might be a saving factor for DC Comics, because if they shut down right now, they can reboot the entire company that way. Get rid of all of these people that are in there that have no interest in producing a good quality product, and just say, we're going to shut down all of DC Comics, and then a little while later saying, we're going to reopen DC Comics just with entirely new people, rebooting the entire comic line so that it's in accord with this DCEU that we want to build. Now, I don't think that would produce the best comics in the world, but better comics than we get right now. But if this was to happen, would you honestly say to yourself, oh, well, I'm just going to start reading DC Comics again. All is forgiven. I will watch all of your DC movies and all of your DC shows. If my comment section is any indication, a vast majority of you would say, no, not doing it. Don't care. And so I think it all boils down to the audience. How is the audience going to react? Does the audience want some stability? And in order to get that stability, they're going to go for familiar characters, even though there might be, and for my money, you can cut out the might be, there might be a progressive agenda in the background, but I don't care because I can't see it, and I have familiar characters, and they make me feel good, and they make me feel secure. Or is the audience going to say, no, I want familiar storytelling, not familiar characters, familiar ways of telling a story. I want a good story. I want a good plot. I want a good hero. I want to have continuity. I want stories to look like stories have ever since the beginning of Western civilization. I don't want there to be an agenda. I don't want there to be a hidden message. I don't want a political definition of what you think stability is. I want a good story. And I don't care if I have to go and get that from new characters or not. And I guess a more relevant question would be, can a modern audience really tell the difference? So if I've given you anything new to think about, hit like, hit the shield in the lower right-hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about all this. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.